I'm excited about tonight. I've gotten to spend some time this last week or so talking with Paul. I met him previously, but we hadn't really had a chance to work together, but I've very much enjoyed it. And not too long ago, got to see and hear him at ASCD at the National Conference, where he presented very similar information, which was incredibly well received and really got some people excited and motivated and inspired to take this work back to their schools and systems. And I am confident that that's what's going to happen tonight for all of you. Paul has been at the public school 13, as he says, for a decade. And as if you can't tell, you'll know very soon that he's passionate about his school and he loves his teachers and he loves his students. And that's why it's the public school. But he, in his role as principal, leads along with and then leads right beside his teams. I know something that he's passionate about is making sure that that he's not telling teachers what to do, that he's a part of the discussion with them. And you're definitely going to hear a little bit about that tonight. He's studied at Wagner and Mercy and Regis colleges and universities, and you're going to see some of that coming out through the way he talks, but even more, you're going to hear that passion in his voice that he's known for. And we are the Core Collaborative, and a big piece of that is collaboration. So we really want you to join the conversation, not just tonight, but in the future. Here's all the ways you can do that. We know all the information we put out and share will be on the corecollaborative.com. We have a Facebook group that's leading impact teams. We would love to see and hear from you what's happening in your schools, what you're doing, and enjoy that conversation with you. And then we've got YouTube. If you need models of success, that's where to go for that. Instagram, a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we want to see your pictures and see what you have happening and what you have to say. And then finally, we've got Twitter. If it's happening in the world in education right now, it's on Twitter. And so we want to have your voice be a part of that. He is the principal at the Public School 13, as well as being a member of the District 31 Guiding Coalition, really taking this work live on Staten Island. And then also is a Learning Partner Group facilitator for the district with Learning Partner Group 8. And I'm going to let him talk for just a second, and then we're going to see a video that's going to really get you ready to learn a little bit more.
All right. So are we live? You can hear me? All of that good stuff?
You're good.
All right. I've never done anything like this before. Chicago was a big deal, but I'm happy to be here. I apologize in advance. I had coffee today, so hold on tight. I have no idea where I'm going to go with this, but I always land the plane safely. So there's that. I had coffee. That's a big deal.
So what we're going to do is we're going to view an excellent example of what it means for a student to own his learning. And as we watch this, I want you to keep track in your mind, what are some of the strengths that you recognize, the things that you see and hear? And as you're doing that, think about what conditions must have been in place to make this possible. So let's go ahead and view that. We're going to take some comments as we go, and then some comments after to figure out exactly what we can learn from this example. And while we're doing that, just get ready, and then we'll share those ideas out.
All right, so
Golden.
I just got finished researching with my D-Day World War II, so I now am like gluing these stats that I read on papers. I cut them out and I glued them to blank papers, writing before, during, and after, since that's the sequence that my story goes in.
Really? Before, during, and after the war?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Can you tell me something you found interesting?
Something I actually found interesting is that there was over like maybe 425,000 people at D-Day, counting civilians and soldiers, but 160,000 Allied troops. Just not America. There were other groups, like other countries. 160,000 other people from other countries went to that one island just to raid over for revenge of the bombing of Pearl Harbor.
So isn't that interesting? So where are you in your learning? What's your next step?
So right now I'm on my draft, and my next step is to get down all my information. So like today, my goal is to get down the body paragraphs for my draft, because I'm not fully finished on researching, but I have enough research for the before. It's like the introduction, and then like 2 heavy paragraphs. So that's what I'm going.
What's a heavy paragraph?
It's like the body.
So what is your goal? How do you want to make that body? You want to make it, when you say heavy, you mean you want to make it like really interesting?
Yes, I want to make it interesting with good details of how, not like violent details, because D-Day was violent, but ways that it's good, it's nice, but it is also age appropriate.
Good job. Thanks, Sean.
Excellent.
All right, so.
So what we want to do now, just very quickly, is share out some of these strengths that you've noticed, and we're going to make some inferences about that. Right, so one is his confidence with these criteria, that he very much knows whether he's doing this well or poorly. Clear idea of the progression, so he's really able to talk about his next steps. They've got almost the exact same thing 4 more times from different people. So that progression is so important. How passionate he is about this. Obviously, this is something he cares about and wants to share. He's not sharing because he's doing school. He's sharing because he's learned this and he wants to help others learn. He knows his next steps. Really, the teacher we're getting some great inferences already too. The teacher has taught this process of learning as well as the content. So both how to learn, how to share information, and what that information is. And then he's setting those goals for his session. A bunch of comments about how deeply interested he obviously is in this. Must have used some metacognition to demonstrate these steps. That's another thing about what the teacher has done. Excellent, yeah, ideas about how many strategies must have been taught for this to be possible. And so what we're seeing is, from all these strengths we saw from him, his confidence, his passion, his ability to talk about the information, talk about where he is in learning this process, came from experiences talking about and using those criteria, and came from instruction from his teachers. So I'll hand it right back over to you, Paul. Thank you for sharing that excellent example.
So just a little bit about us. And Sean is Sean's a great guy, a great kid. And just one interesting fact about that video: the teacher that was interviewing him, that was actually part of a lateral evidence walk. That was his kindergarten teacher talking to him now as a 4th grader. So she took a lot of pride in that as well. What we do here doesn't happen in silos. Just a kind of a neat fact about that. And he was very happy to share his learning with his kindergarten teacher as well. Public School 13, and I can't believe I just said that. That is so wrong. The Public School 13. You can see who we are. About 20% of our population are English as a new language learner. 22% of our population have an IEP, and 70% of our families come to us from poverty. What's not here is that my students speak no fewer than 13 languages. So when we think about continuums and we think about entry points, it's just paramount that we can do so accurately, and that we can work with our students so that we're very intentional and purposeful when we deliver the instruction. So assessment capable learners, for going on 3 years now, our focus here at PS13 has been around student engagement. And with assessment capable learners, our students can tell you where they are in their learning, where they're going with their learning, and then probably most importantly, how they're going to get there and the strategies that they're being taught. And as I was listening to the feedback from Sean, first I want to say thank you. And second thing I want to recognize is that this whole idea of voice and choice. And so hard stop there with voice and choice. That is not mine. That comes from Ms. Turner, our instructional coach. And living in the flow. How often can we live in the flow? We know we can't be there all of the time, but when we talk about when the teachers and especially the students enjoy designing and enjoy the process because they're working on something that's important to them, it makes all of the difference. And again, that video was a great example of that. How about the best and worst slide that I'm going to present today? We can tell this is based on the mathematics summative data. This is the New York State ELA and mathematics exams. We're increasing slowly but surely, a little more quickly in ELA. And so here's the most embarrassing part. 5 years ago in 2015, 4 years ago in 2015, only 25% of my kids were on or above level when it came to that New York State assessment. Just this last year, we broke into the 50th percentile. I attribute most, in large part, I want to say if not all, of this progress toward impact teams and sitting down with teachers at the table and really thinking about where kids are and what they need. So my favorite line, and the line that gets a lot of attention, is let's go do something weird. And so what does that mean? And my first grade team the other day said, Martuccio, you're always going to talk about, always telling us to go do something weird, and we aren't really sure what that means. And so just sharing a quick story about explaining what go do something weird means. My fifth graders went over to Staten Island Technical High School a couple of weeks ago. And the teacher gave them 2 Oreos. The first Oreo, they were just allowed to eat. So big Oreo guy. Sounds like fun to me, but not necessarily weird. Things got weird when they took the Oreo and they put it in liquid nitrogen. Then they were given the Oreo back and they were allowed to eat it. They noticed that the Oreo was frozen. They noticed that they could see their breath all of a sudden, and they were wondering and they were wondering and they were questioning. That's weird. Years ago, 5 years ago, when we started having at PS13, our kindergarten students switch classes so that they could receive individualized reading instruction particular to their level. People thought that was weird. People were saying they are not in intermediate school, they're not in high school, we're not sure if it can work, but it was weird and we got great gains. In short, I'm looking to do things differently, just as much as a dad, by the way, as I am as a principal. I am looking for answers because we're trying to prepare kids for jobs that don't even exist yet. So, and if something fails, the line is, so what, now what, let's go try something else. Isaac, I think I kick back to you here.
That's right, yeah. So we would love you to tweet out about this thought or put your thoughts in the comments. So how does your school create conditions for student ownership? We're going to give you just about 30 seconds to think about that. Send us a message, tweet something out, and then we're going to do our first drawing to see who is getting one of these gift cards. Here it goes. Oh, so but yeah, Amber, we're excited about that, and hopefully you'll get some things you need.
So, so just get back to our story a little bit. The PS13 story actually begins with who is now Executive Superintendent Anthony Ladico, and he talked to us, I guess 5 years ago now, about student ownership and students really being responsible for their learning. So that's really where it begins. But the thing that impacted me the most as a leader are the things that it didn't come with. Mr. Ladico didn't say, make sure that you have this done on this date with this form and make sure that you're prepared to answer these questions. He really gave the principals autonomy to really strike out on their own and think about what this looks like in their building. That's made all of the difference for me as a leader, because I try to do a lot of the same things here at PS13. So with our current Chancellor Carranza, in terms of his expectations, in terms of advancing equity now, accelerating learning, developing people, and partnering with communities, I think that we'll be able to see really clearly that impact teams are a way to do that, and that student achievement is directly linked to expanding student ownership. And just a little thing in terms of equity and access. My students are learning how to use their voice. They have to. They're responsible for their learning. And just to go back, circle back, preparing kids for jobs that we don't know that even exist yet, I don't know that they're going to have to pass advanced calculus in order to be successful in this world. I'm sure. I just don't know. What I am sure about is that they're going to have to be able to work with one another. They're going to have to be able to know themselves socially and emotionally and how they interact with folks. They have to be able to be a successful team member. So when we talk about student-teacher partnerships, I really think about Paul Bloomberg. He says, formative assessment isn't something that happens to students, it happens with the students. And in order for that to happen for me and for my teacher teams, it all begins with the standards and the progressions themselves. From there, what does it look like if I'm successful? And then we can offer feedback. We can identify gaps, where they are on this continuum of the standard. Students can think about where they are. They can peer assess. And then the whole thing starts all over again, and we start new goals. So assessment capable learners, I mentioned earlier, student engagement is it for us. It has been for the last 3 years, and the more we learn, he pauses here, the more we learn, the more we realize how much we didn't know and how much we have to go. I think the saying is, when you think you're done, you've only just begun, and that couldn't be any more true. The interesting thing here is that, for a long time, we were really focused on assessment capable learners, and then collective efficacy entered, excuse me. My thing is, or my belief is it's still evolving, but I believe collective efficacy is built from assessment capable learners. As we identify where kids are on the continuum, we make intentional, purposeful teaching decisions, and then those small wins turn into belief from the kids, belief from the teachers, belief from the administration. Now, building the culture of efficacy is really about trust. And trust, this is safety and trust in my world are synonymous. Earlier I said, we tried something and it failed, and my answer is, so what, now what? I want to encourage that, and that's the feedback. And eventually we make our way to models that ultimately lead to mastery. That's my view from the principal's chair. In the classroom, it's similar, and you know what? We'll get to that a little bit more. We kind of talked about that. The culture of efficacy, I kind of touched on this a little bit already, but I just want to make the point that a culture of efficacy really includes everyone. It isn't about the teachers coming up and making their own decisions. It isn't about nothing in isolation. And I'm not sure if I said this already, but I'll make sure that I say it again. I'm at the table. That's something that I've learned. I made a decision more than 10 years ago that the only thing instruction finishes second to is safety. So just as long as I make sure that my building is safe, everything else plays second fiddle rather to instruction, and we go from there. These small wins lead to this culture of efficacy, this culture of belief. When we look at the title here, leading impact teams, we can talk about the fact that, just to kind of circle back one more time, it's not impact teams, it's leading impact teams. The way that I choose to lead the impact team is to be very present and to show up as a learner and not a knower.
This idea of building efficacy in leading impact teams, we really combine some of the best innovations from across the educational world and maximize impact for students and for teachers. What's changed with impact teams is it's really refocused PLCs, and it's made it about the students. So it puts students at the center for everything. And then you can see here, we've got some words that really pop. These are teams. It's a partnership. We work together, and we work with students, as he mentioned. And so we can really find new ways to develop that student ownership and make a difference for everyone. Each of the protocols we use is based in evidence. So we have to have quality evidence. We analyze that together to figure out why are students successful and how can we share out the success with others. And then we take action. What can we do together to move all students through that progression, or all learners in the case of teachers. And then here you can see where we've taken the PLC questions and we've simplified it into that evidence analysis action format. And as you'll see, that's what we're about to walk through now, with how schools can take control of learning for students and for teachers and make a real difference.
You know, part of I mentioned earlier that I always knew that instruction was where it's at. And there are so many things that distract you in the principal's chair. I mean, let's just be real for a minute. I was 15, maybe 20 different places today between student of the month and all of these different things. But my belief is that all of the answers that we need are right here on the proverbial bus, if you will. Mike Schmoker, in his book Results Now, in the beginning of chapter 8, he really talks about going to an auditorium style professional development. We all went in there, we got this great information, and usually you get back on the bus, you go home, and you start teaching the next day without having the opportunity to have implemented anything. One thing that made all of the difference for his learning community is when they got back on the bus, they took out a pad and a piece of paper, and they started writing new curriculum, things that mattered to the students that were in front of them. That's what we try to do here via impact teams at PS13. And so we ask ourselves the questions: what am I creating? What am I solving? Where can we make the most impact? A lot of times the question comes up, what do you do with the students that need everything? I'm a special education guy, a self-contained guy, a 12-to-1 guy by trade. What was I going to do for these students that need everything? And the answer, and the thing that impact teams really help you do, is focus. So student engagement is our focus, but I'm actually going to skip around here in typical Martuccio fashion. I'm going to go to teacher empowerment first. And when we think about teacher empowerment, I start with the teachers because I want them to know that they have the license to try. And I really believe that all of this stuff is really rolling downhill. If I can communicate, and I have at this point, communicated to the teachers that what they can do is just try anything. And if you fail, the only thing that you can't do is nothing. Just try something else. That same message will get to the students. When we first started this, I had teachers at the table say to me, just tell me what to do, Martuccio. Just tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. It took years. It took a couple of years, quite honestly, for me to be just part of the conversation. Even as the evolution was taking place, teachers would talk to one another and then they would quickly turn to me. What's Martuccio going to say? What is he going to do? And so I had to sit on my hands. I don't know if you noticed, but I am a man of many words and I've got opinions about everything. But what I needed to do as a leader is put the teachers in charge and really trust them, going back to the culture of efficacy that we just talked about, and let them know that it was okay in whatever direction that they wanted to go. I come as a learner and not a knower. That is my new favorite line. Well, I guess I have a couple of favorite lines. So what, now what? I like, I've got a couple of these lines, but this has made all of the difference because I'm not coming at them from a principal's chair or from a formal authority position. I've really invested a lot in informal authority. And that is having people come on board the bus because they believe in the work and they see where we're going, and they believe that they have a voice. And they should believe that they have a voice because they do, and it's the most important voice. So one thing, we talked about the continuum of engagement earlier, and I don't know if you've all have read this book before. If you don't feed the teachers, they'll eat the students. One of my favorite titles, if not my favorite books. And as part of one of the guiding coalition and going into schools, and something that made all of the difference in this school is when we began using the IDA protocol. The IDA protocol really sets up your year's worth of learning. So where we talked about voice and choice earlier for Sean, and he was able to talk about World War II, he could tell you where he was going, and how he was going to get there. I don't believe, in one-size-fits-all professional development. I talk to teacher teams, and they tell me where they want to go. One of the sayings that I like to use is, I'd rather be lucky than good. I was very lucky 2 years ago when the entire school chose writing as our school-wide focus. Now, there are different angles inside of the writing, but it certainly made my life a lot easier because this is where I make my professional development decisions. We chose, and actually, that's not true. I'm going to back up. A teacher brought me a Jennifer Saravallo book. She said, she's coming to New Jersey. We've got to go see her. Paul Bloomberg, who we work with all of the time, wealth of information, great guy, have nothing but great things to say, also talked to us about Jennifer Saravallo. And we use that one point of reference school-wide. And all of this then focuses on student ownership, student engagement. We've kind of talked about that, and assessment capable learners is down there at the bottom of the list with the highest effect size. So all of our PD and what do we want to do with writing has everything to do with the students in mind. None of this matters if the students don't own this. So formative assessment, and I want to talk a little bit about New York, and maybe, I know that there are some folks from Texas on, maybe you'll be able to identify with this. One of the state tests in New York is really the nicest lab, where we test our English language learners. Students take that test around now. We get the results back in probably early September, maybe late August. By the time all of the data is disaggregated, it's October, just being honest. And then we're forced to make instructional decisions based for students that might not even be in the school anymore, by the way, based on data and tests that were taken in May. I've decided to invest the largest part of my energy into formative assessment. And the reason why we do that is because I need something that's very actionable right now. And I felt like this as a teacher, I felt like this as an assistant principal, but I really feel like this as a principal. It's not only the time of the information, but it's the amount of information. And you're forced to make a decision. What do you value and what do you want to use? For me, it's formative assessment. For my teachers, if I'm so bold to speak for them, I think it's formative assessment. And our belief is that if you focus on the formative assessment, the diagnostic data and the summative data follow along. So with that commitment to formative assessment, we pay attention to things like student voice and student work. We're watching videos. We go and observe one another. It's probably the one that we use the most now. And it's also a lot of fun because the kids know why we're there. There's laughing and we're having a good time with it. Triangulating the data with the whole child in mind. I guess I can kind of refer back. I kind of talked about this already. Formative assessment is where it's at. That's my position. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And I do have data that supports the diagnostic data, and the summative data will follow along. I've shared some of that with you. This next part of envisioning success is actually the bottom third of the IDA protocol, and it's where I begin. I start here because I ask the teachers, and we're doing these now. We did one on Tuesday, we're doing them last week, and then I've got a lot more coming up this week. And I don't facilitate all of the meetings anymore, but I do facilitate these because I need to ask questions about what are you thinking? What do you want the kids to be thinking and saying and doing? And I start here because if we can visualize, just like the slalom skiers that get up there and you see them close their eyes, I'm like, that guy better open his eyes or he's going to fall down the mountain. But we visualize where we want to go, and then we make decisions about how we're going to get there. The other thing about this, doing this as an administrator and as a principal, it really informs my observations. I go in there and I can say, oh, okay, I can see why she made this decision. I can see why she made that decision. And then afterwards, when we debrief, what do you think worked well and all of that kind of stuff? And then we can kind of brainstorm together based on envisioning success and everything else that comes with the IDA protocol. And we can make decisions about how best to move forward. This might be my favorite slide. And I'm going to be a little bit Mr. Martuccio right now. My ELA data from that state test kind of looks like the arrow on the left, but shameless plug right there, and I apologize. Only a little bit though. But the real thing is, the thing that I value the most is what success looks like as it's defined by the chart on the right. It really is messy, and as the principal, I value the mistakes. We live in a world, like it or not, we live in a world where the most correct answers, if we got all of the answers right on the Scantron, that's what we're looking for. As educators, we know the learning really happens when you make mistakes. So enjoy the ride. And it is frustrating, and it isn't all roses, and it is messy. But I like it. I'm okay with that. So measuring our impact. None of this matters if the students don't own it. So with that, let's watch this video. Isaac, did you like that pause for dramatic effect?
I love it, yeah. Ta-da!
Okay, so my feedback was to make the conclusion connect to my introduction. So how I did that was, so I drafted many times and drafted, and then after I drafted, you can see here that it's really short. And then I went back to the intro to see if it connected. But I see that it's sort of connected, but in a different way. And it actually connected. And then now here, so I gathered up facts and then I numbered them for the subtopic. But my main goal was to connect the conclusion to the intro. So now I wrote everything, and then I was up to my conclusion, and then I thought about the main idea, and it was about a knight, right? And then I read my intro many times, and then I thought of a conclusion in my head, then put it here, and then saw if it matched. Because yeah, we can't just copy the intro down on the conclusion. So yeah, I put it in my own words again, and then I read it, and then read the introduction together, and they matched. And so that's how I got my conclusion to match. And yeah, and the feedback really helped me with my writing, because if the conclusion was off topic, like my Nissan GTR, then it wouldn't make sense, you know? Like, the reader was like so excited with the subtopics, the intro, you know, like, and at the end, like, you started strong, and then you started like, and then you
down like a mountain,
and then ended like down, like, you know. So yeah.
So that's why you have to like really actually like pay attention and use the feedback. So, like from that, how she said, make your main idea.
And my strategy was
the conclusion.
Kind of like, you know, like hard, because I had to draft many times to get the.
But then that actually paid off.
Yeah, it actually paid off.
So we've been seeing some comments pop up, as you can imagine, how powerful it is to see this peer feedback happening, how excited he was to share. And there's just absolutely no doubt that he understands inside and out what he's been studying, and that he's ready to share it, but also that he understands, and maybe more importantly, that process. so many things over and over about that passion and confidence. Loving that mountain metaphor. I love that too. And just how powerful it is that the child's able not just to talk about how this process works, not just to talk about what they've written about, but that they're able to talk about how they've used their feedback, how they're using scaffolds to improve. The same conversations we might have on a teacher team, they're having together. Maybe 5 or 6 people have said something about that listening. You can almost feel that connection there, deep listening, not waiting to see what I'm going to say, but wanting to understand. So tell us a little bit more about these two.
So the interesting thing, and I love the comments, because Nashwan, the boy that was doing all of the talking, the year before was very quiet, wasn't engaged in his learning at all. He didn't have any confidence and he didn't have any interest. Voice and choice. There's Miss Turner's line, voice and choice. It was a Nissan GTO or whatever it was, and he couldn't stop talking about it. The funniest part of the whole thing is that Zacharia, the boy that was doing the listening, and I kind of hope that you saw his body language, he was doing everything he could to listen. And we know he was listening, because he said it was coming down the mountain, and he said, you have to use this, whatever he said. Zachariah's mom was in the classroom last year because he would get up and just walk around. So we've got some students here that we needed to help them focus. This is the way to do it. Assessment capable learners, success criteria. And I was pretty good about getting excited, and I feel it coming on. And I'm not apologizing. This is me, and here I am, because that video gets me going. I love those guys, and that's it. That's what it looks like.
So right before we jump into this one, I think it's time for me to give away another gift card for school supplies.
Cool.
And then when we come back, and we're going to see this next one, and then if we've got some good questions about, can you speak to how you used this inquiry process to make this happen and to make it so deep and so widespread?
Sure.
Yeah, people are loving seeing these guys in action. So let's see, who do we have here? All right, Jennifer. We're excited for you, Jennifer. Hope that you get just what you need for your class or for yourself.
So I'm part of the 4th grade writing impact team, and we all sit at a table together, and we discuss our units of study and what we're doing and how we're doing it. And our principal, Mr. Martuccio, he also sits at the table with us. And he's not there as a knower, he sits there as a learner alongside with us. So we're grappling with this work, and it's frustrating, and we're agreeing and we're disagreeing, and it's just a lot of risk-taking and just believing that we have all of the answers sitting there at the table. And then how that translates into the classroom is, my classroom is no longer this quiet place. It's buzzing. It's an organized chaos. The kids are working in groups. They're working in partnerships. They know that I believe that they can do this type of work, and they want to do the work because they know that it's meaningful, and it's meaningful to them. They know that there's like a bigger purpose to this work, not just, oh, I have to write an essay for class. It's something a lot bigger than that. And through the writing impact teams, we're given an opportunity to talk about what we know and how it's going to apply to the classroom. And everything that we do is always grounded in the standards. So we're always going back to the standards. We're going back and we're asking the kids, well, what are you doing now? And what are you doing next? And how are you going to get there? And we're constantly using feedback and rubrics, and the kids they just go with it, and it's wonderful. It's a great process.
So I want to, I put so much stock into that for a lot of reasons, not the least of which, Miss Ormsbee is a lot smarter than me. she's one of the best teachers I know. She knows stuff. She's forgotten more than I know. She was also, for a time, I think the last 2 years or 3 years or 4 years, she was the UFT rep. She was the union rep in this building. So in order for something to take hold in this building, because of my teachers are amazing. And I don't know, I'm trying to think of a really nice way to say it, but that's not really me. If you haven't figured that out, my teachers are amazing. They're super smart people, and probably more important than anything else, they're good people. Miss Ormsbee is super smart, and she believes in this work, so I know that we're on the right track. So I think one of the questions earlier, Isaac, was how do you go and how do you get here? And I really think that Miss Ormsbee answered it. We pay attention to the standards. In New York right now, we're moving from the Common Core standards, we're moving into the next generation standards. There are subtle differences, they aren't major differences, but the point is to stay locked into the standards and then to do whatever it takes. Students first, high expectations, no excuses, let's get them to the standard. And knowing the continuum of the standard allows you to intentionally and purposefully, and I think Paul Bloomberg says this all of the time too, it's just smarter. It's not a hope and a prayer. It's very focused, and we know what we're doing because we pay attention to the standards. So let me just, I'm going to try to move along here. It's almost my time. But in terms of creating that culture of efficacy, I said very early on, safety and trust mean the same thing to me. On our latest learning environment survey, here comes competitive Martuccio, we beat the district and we beat the city. 96% of those responded positively to questions about trust. And then just below that, 90% of the teachers say that they trust the principal. I've lived in situations where I might not have answered that way, and I'm going to hard stop right there. But the city average is 81%. That's something that I'm particularly proud of, and Impact Teams grows that. When you sit at the table and you have conversations with people, meaningful conversations about the students that are sitting in front of us, that's the result of those conversations. So I'm happy that
we've got people looking at that data and making all the comments you expect, especially just the fact that if anybody didn't see it, that's 100% of teachers saying they trust each other. I mean, there's nothing that's not possible when you have that level of trust, and so you can really build in that level of collaboration. And like you hit on earlier, you really said that in your mind that safety is where it all begins, and that safety comes from the trust, knowing that I can take a chance, I can take a risk, I can try something, and if this doesn't work, that's okay, we'll figure it out, we'll move on. And so just there's even more popping up in here, so I don't want to interrupt you, but I had to call attention to that.
That's great. You know, just to build on that point, I think it's an important point. 100% of the teachers say that they trust one another. When we go to the next slide, how well do teachers work with one another? 93% that responded positively to questions about collaboration. That speaks directly to the trust that the teachers develop, because no one's working in a silo here. I think I've said that before, and maybe I want to hit that hard. It isn't about any one of us, it's about all of us. I say that to my kids, I say that to my parents, and I say that to my teachers. This is what it isn't about any one of us, it's about all of us looks like. When you sit at the table and you're thinking about standards, and you're thinking about voice and choice, and you're thinking about so what, now what, this is what it looks like at the end. And again, it's not like this in the beginning. I'm not saying it's like this in the beginning, but I'm fired up. It's almost 8:30 at night. I gave a presentation at the Garden Summit today. Went awesome. But it's 8:30 at night, and I feel myself charged. So I'm going to try to land the plane now. I always knew that I wanted to value human capital, and I always knew that the answers, and I believe this, the answers for individual schools are in individual schools. I didn't know how to do it. when I found impact teams and when I really started sitting at the table, I realized how to emphasize that this is a relationship-based business. We are not building cars. We're building students, we're building people, we're building tomorrow. So even if we wanted to take a selfish slant on this, I need somebody to take care of me when I get old. Like if I drop that CrossFit bar on me, who's gonna come and help me? These kids are gonna come and help me because we've embedded in them a belief that what they do matters. And number two, and probably more importantly, that they can do it. I was going to say something else and I forgot what it was, but if this is live, I should probably just.
And here's a great question. Does each person in the team in your school have different roles? So if I'm an impact team member on the first grade team, will I have a specific role?
No. The way that the teams have kind of evolved, if you will, is that part of the trust that they have for one another at this point, and years ago when we were just doing regular professional learning communities, we did assign jobs. You're the recorder, you're the timekeeper. It kind of boxed everybody in because the timekeeper, I found, was only really talking about the time. The recorder was making sure that they had everything written down, and there wasn't the freedom to just be and to say this and to say that. There also, because of that trust, also comes respect. And because there's respect, there is this commitment to where if I have something to say, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to be comfortable to say it. And if I don't have anything to say, then I'm not going to say anything. Equity of voice is something that that I think about a lot and that I pay attention to. Is one person dominating? Is one person really taking over? And it doesn't happen. Does it happen sometimes? It depends on the session, and it depends on the focus on that particular week, because different people have expertise in different areas. Mm-hmm. But I got away from assigning you're the timekeeper and all of that other stuff. And maybe you need that. That's just the way it happens here. We did it once upon a time. We just don't do it anymore.
Yeah, and how can you go through that impact team inquiry cycle and really get the level of ideas you need, and move through the whole process if you don't have everybody's voice involved. So I think in a lot of ways, that's a great way to pull it back. And I've enjoyed hearing from you tonight, and I've also enjoyed talking to you this week. And so often it's come up that you said you needed the impact team process in place. You needed those unwrapped and unpacked standards in place. And then once all that was there, you were able to really take control together as a school and make some moves that even you thought may not have been possible before. So before we wrap up, let's give away another chance to win here. Oh, Deborah. Got it. Thought it was going to be Sandra, but then it was Deborah. So close. And let's do one more. Let's see who else can win this. Robert. Each of you, I'll follow up with and make sure that we get you what you've got coming to you, so that you can buy some school supplies, buy some things your kids need, buy some things you need, and then go from there. We believe in you, and we appreciate you believing in us enough to spend your evening with us or your afternoon. So as we wrap up, first, of course, we've got to say thank you so much for spending your time with us. We're grateful. We're grateful for you. Excuse me. There's always opportunities to learn more. We are a collaborative group, so we want you to be sharing with us. Join in any way you can. You can follow what we're up to from our webpage. Join us in the Leading Impact Teams group and let us know exactly what you have going on. And then as well as that on Instagram and Twitter. And as we said, YouTube has great videos, all types of success that you can see. And this is going to be one of those. This will be posted tomorrow. We'll get this up, and you'll be able to learn from afar and share out with others who you think this will be helpful for. We have many opportunities coming up for you to be able to meet face-to-face. So we'd love to have you come and join us at one of our national collaboratives. We're especially excited about Mind Fueled, which is coming up. That is this June, the 27th through 28th. And as we quote often, it's not a conference, it's an experience. And it really is something that may change your life. It's changed mine. And the only jewelry I wear is my Mind Fueled bracelet, reminding me that my intention this year is to transform myself and partner with others to transform learning in their schools and systems. We hope you'll join us again in our next master classes. I'll be leading one to really get us inspired with young readers. So we'll be doing Igniting Goal Setting with Readers. That's on June 20th. And then the next month we have Star Saxteen. She's going to be leading us through engaging in reflection with students, teachers, and leaders, and really looking at the role of reflection in changing how we learn and what we learn and how we influence others. And that is Thursday, July 18th. We meet you each month, the third Thursday, unless it's a national holiday. We've got Peer Power coming up. You'll be seeing some great things about that. And you've just seen some videos that are excellent examples of what it looks like when children take ownership of their learning and collaborate with each other to make a difference for themselves and others. And then if this has piqued your interest and you're wondering, how can I get some of this in my school or with my team or my district, take the Impact Team's pre-assessment survey, and then we'll reach out to you, and we'd love to talk to you about the strengths you have right now and what can be a next step to move you in this direction. So Paul, thank you so much. Is there anything you'd like to say as we wrap up?
No, I really want to say thank you. I had a great time. And so I don't mind telling you that I was a little bit nervous, and that comes from a guy that doesn't get nervous. So I had a great time. We do, if you want to come and see us, come and see us. We're PS 13, the Public School 13, Rosebank, Staten Island, New York. You want to come see us, please do. The door is open. Thank you again. Have a great night.
I took him up on that offer, and I'm glad I did. And I saw in the comments a few other people who've come out there to visit, see what's happening, talk to people who are engaged, and bring those ideas back with you. As always, we appreciate you. This network is what makes learning possible with the Core Collaborative. And as we sign off, we want to thank you for sharing your two most valuable resources with us, your time and your attention. Have a wonderful night, and we'll see you next time.